Well, newest woes with the old Ram there. It's a 4th gen 2017 Ram 1500. It's got the air ride suspension, which is all the rage and fantastic, quote unquote, when it works. I've had problems with it freezing up in the winter, in the last couple winters, and I believe the system is somewhat sealed, as in it's got a tank full of nitrogen, it's charged to 200 psi I believe, and normally the system will just pull in and out of that tank to raise and lower the truck. There is a breather at the back if it has to pull in extra air. In case of, I heard, really cold climates, it shrinks too much, the pressure drops too much, it can pull in some fresh air. I don't know if that's true, I don't believe so. I think it's more related to leaks. So if you have a slow leak in your system, the pump will pull in outside air, which is oxygen, to replace it. Unfortunately, with that comes moisture, and eventually you build up moisture in the system. The system does have an air dryer attached to the compressor, but that's basically just water absorbing pellets that I think actually should be a maintenance item and need to be replaced every few years. So we're gonna have a look at that. But I'll show you what I got here. Back corner, fine, up in the air. Front corner, somewhat lower. That's the right side of the truck, or passenger side. Driver's side, fairly low on the back. Completely on the bump stop on the front. You can see the tires even angled in at the top. It's right on the bump stop. It should never actually ride this low. This is the position where you're bottoming out, basically, on the suspension. And what's happening is I got the immediate service, the suspension fault, of course. When I started the ignition up, it says it thinks it's an off-road 2, which is a lie. The lights are all up there. Now if I go and select normal ride height, the truck will do nothing for the longest time. Finally it'll decide to do something, and it'll say lowering, which is what it should be doing. It's not at off-road 2, but this status never changes, and I no longer hear my compressor going. When I used to hear the compressor, it was pretty whiny, like a screechy kind of sound, which I knew was not good. But I guess I was just procrastinating and delaying screwing with the system. But it's time. We're in the fall now and winter's coming. So I'm going to try to figure out what's going on. I'm going to pull off the back tire and the wheel well liner, because behind there is where the compressor sits, the valve block sits. There's also access to vacuum port and fill port for the compressor tanks. And right now my computer says, I hooked up a scan tool. My scan tool says I have 0 pressure in the tank. So I believe that to be true. The pump's probably dead. So I'm going to see if I can muck with that, put some pressure in it, and see if the system will do anything. I suspect not, because I think if the compressor, well, maybe the compressor, it won't call for the compressor if it's got good pressure. We'll see. I'll try that first, even though I don't suspect that's going to solve the issue, of course. But we're going to probably end up replacing the compressor, and 90% of the time there's a leak in one of the 2 rear airbags, which is fairly common. So I did get 2 airbags in. I got the compressor, which comes with a valve block. So I'll try to determine what the actual issue was here. But we'll see. We'll see what I can find. So yeah, I'll get set up in the back and we'll take the tire and the wheel well off and have a peek. Fun. All right, so unfortunately something went wrong with the GoPro. It didn't record any audio. So I'll try my best to do a little voiceover here. So after you jack off the truck, put it safely on tire stands, remove the tire, and then grab your 8mm driver or whatever to remove the inner fender liner. There's a bunch of bolts around the outside. So zip those out of there. And then the fun part is actually trying to get this liner out. What I found best actually was to sort of pull down the back and then take the front out. Um, it's just a bit of a muscle this thing around till it pops kind of idea. But um, I tried a bunch of different things here in this clip actually to get it to come out, but uh, it didn't go so well. It's best to start at the back, not at the front. As you can see here, it kind of jammed in there. So if you pull the back down first, like I discovered later, it goes much smoother. So pop that out, and that will reveal the manifold. Hurry up, Mo. Get that out of there. Run out of things to talk about. Finally. Okay. Once you got that removed, good job, Mo. Ta-da. Thank you. Drum roll, apparently. Um, at the back here, you will see the manifold that ties into the two air tanks behind it with the plastic caps on there. They look like air conditioning fill points, low pressure fill points. And that is the manifold that the dealer uses to fill the system, check the pressure of the system, and they can do a nitrogen purge there as well if they need to. So those two fittings uh, are two of the points I'm going to be checking for leaks first because they're the easiest to get to. Um, and this is the manifold that the computer controls the fill and droop of the four individual bags. So that's what those four fittings on the right are. They're each labeled with a tire location, or bag location, I should say, at each wheel. And then the two inner ones are the in and out from the compressor and tanks. And in the far back there, you'll see the compressor. So I thought I'd take you guys over to the compressor that I purchased, um, just so we know what we're looking at here. That's basically what's hiding behind the fender there. So the replacement came as a unit with the valve body already, the valve block already attached. You can see the top left is pressure, bottom is out, and then the four positions, the bags. It's already attached to the compressor with a bracket. Everything's pre-wired and pre-piped from the compressor. Yep, I'm tapping on the compressor. Um, I guess we're admiring how shiny it is. This is an updated unit with an aluminum piston inside, whereas the stock one, according to my research, is the plastic piston. So a bit of an upgrade, a little better materials. This is a Dorman replacement unit, aftermarket unit. It's not the factory unit. So I'm hoping it's going to last a little longer than the one that failed on us. All right, and here are the two airbags I bought. They are also an aftermarket brand, but the price was right. 227 Canadian for two bags. So I figured if they last a little while, it's worth it. So to be able to put some air in the system to look for leaks, because our compressor is not working right now, I took these air conditioning test gauge sets, and the low pressure blue line is the line that connects to the truck's fitting. But I hooked it up to this red side because the blue gauge doesn't go high enough in pressure, and we got to be able to read at least 200 psi. So that end will connect to the truck on that manifold fill block we saw earlier. And then, yeah, that's right. Not enough. There's enough on the gauge on the red one to read it, not on the blue one. I already talked about that, Mo. You get caught up here. So with this, we'll be able to drain the tank and fill the tank here I've made up a little, I put a quick disconnect air fitting inside the line that normally goes to the yellow fill for the tanks for the air conditioning bottles. And it fit in there with a little Teflon tape. The threads aren't quite right, but it was good enough to hold in there. Um, Enough for us to get some air into the system, I think. And we'll be able to shut the valve and open it as we need it to fill or to drain the system, just like you would with air conditioning. So with that, we should be able to connect and put some air into the tanks. All right, so you unscrew the plastic cap there from the valve block. Both ports are connected together. I believe they use one for vacuum to vacuum the system, leave the vacuum, and use the other port to fill with after. That's why there's two, but they are joined together. So put our HVAC fitting on here, and we're connected, remember, to the red gauge there. So we hook in, and then I'm going to turn open the valve to let the air from the compressor into the system. And we let the air from the compressor into the system. And the compressor will only go to 120 psi max. It's just a little pancake compressor, but um, I managed to get enough air in there that we should be able to do enough testing, look for leaks. I can't remember off the top of my head. I believe we got to about 110 psi into the system. And I know when the factory fills the system, and they fill it to about 200 psi. So we're nowhere near exceeding the pressure ratings of any of these components here. So we're safe to do this. All right. So I just want to show you guys this app. It's called Alpha OBD, and I use a Bluetooth um, module to connect with the truck on the OBD2 port with it. So here we're requesting access to the air suspension control module on my truck. And once it connects, you can do a few things. You can read fault codes, of course. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So it'll pull up all the faults found in the module, and you can take note of the faults. Um, the first fault that I wanted to look into was the C1509, and that's the low air mass fault, which makes sense because we had no air in the system. But if you scroll down, you can see when this fault occurred uh, and all the different parameters in the system associated with that fault when it happened. So that's really handy for troubleshooting. And I don't think this app costs more than a few bucks for the pro version. So it's well worth getting for this kind of thing because this information would not be available in just a generic OBD2 scanner you'd get off the shelf. This is specific to Alpha and Dodge and a few other vehicles. So the other one that was of interest was this one, 1562, ride height, air pump control, component or system in over temperature. And I think that's what's going on with my pump. It couldn't keep up with keeping the tank full of uh, with happy pressure because it wouldn't. You'd think it's over temperaturing, and I don't know if this actually a sensor or if this is like a virtual number because it's a very steady signal and it just seems to like climb based on runtime of the pump. So I honestly think this is just a virtual calculated value. It doesn't actually measure the compressor's temperature, but I'm not certain on that. Just a guess. So cleared the fault here. Now we've got no more faults. And you can go into this live data screen and choose which values you want to look at. And we're just going to go into the pressure of the system. And believe we're going to put the pressure or the temperature on the compressor as well. We can see all the values you're able to read here. Um, there's a lot of them. So for troubleshooting the system, this is an invaluable tool for sure. So yeah, I'm just going to pick the pressure sensor and the pressure temperature and hit the graph. Hit play and it starts to graph your values. And the reason I say the compressor temperature must be just a virtual value is because it's just a flat line that changes. But of interest here is look at the pressure. And I thought at first that it was kind of weird that it's not steady. It looks to me like it's dropping, and that was quite a big clue actually, because we're not telling the system to do anything, and yet, according to this, we're losing pressure. So I went down underneath the truck again here at this point and sprayed the main manifold and the valve block with soapy water. And let me show you what I found. It, yeah, not a smoking gun, but maybe a smoking bubble gun? Check this out. Those bubbles forming on the right are definitely a big leak, but we also got some bubbling on the left fitting as well. You can see a little bit of bubbling forming there. Doesn't look like there's anything at the line, but those two fittings definitely have sprung a leak. So good news because we actually found something. Okay, so I'm gonna, I mean, this thing's screwed anyways, right? What, it's gonna leak more. So 15 millimeter is the right size for this fitting. I'm gonna just pull it out and see what it looks like. Worst case, I go buy another manifold today. Hopefully, they haven't, I guaranteed they have these in stock. This many problems. Okay, so interesting. And you guys see that? It's actually got an O-ring on it there. So it's relying on this O-ring to seal. But how would that I mean, sure. So is it a matter of finding that O-ring? I've got O-rings. O-ring doesn't even feel like it's hard or anything, but the O-ring seals inside that connector. So if I can clean out that connector, and this end and put a new O-ring on, maybe we'll be in business. Let me go grab the O-ring kit. Okay, so I pulled off the O-ring, and the O-ring actually, it's still soft. Sorry, it's soft, it's not misshapen. The O-ring actually seems okay. I do have in my box of O-rings one the same size, slightly fatter. So let's put that on the back burner for now. I think the real issue is this. Sorry, I can't shoot worth a. You see the all the corrosion built up on here? I think what we need to do is actually get rid of the corrosion. I'm gonna get the brass wheel out and see if we can get some of that off of there. What do the judges say? Looks pretty clean. Now the other problem is the other end. Let's go take a look. I initially thought this was black plastic, but I don't think so. Oh, how am I gonna do this? Okay, I'll blind you guys. It's definitely metal. I think I just need to spray some chemicals in there with a brush and go to town and see how we can clean that up. So let me try some stuff. Tough tempted to put a drill on this brush, but it's a little redneck even for me. Okay, well, come on along guys, get out of it. Feast your eyes. I think that's going to do it. I'm going to take the other fitting out, clean it up the same. We'll go ahead and put those bigger O-rings in, I think, just because we have them. And I'm going to put this back together, we'll pressure it back up and we'll retest. And I don't know, that actually, yee. I actually believe that's plastic, not metal. It's just the aluminum fitting oxidizing. So let's get that other one out of there, clean it up, and we'll do the same treatment to it. And I'll bring you back after when we go to pressurize it up again. Trust it. So same story on the other one. It's the same type of corrosion level. So I'll do the same treatment with the brake clean in the hole. And we'll clean this up with the brass wheel and new O-rings, and then we'll insert. Not dry, we'll lubricate, don't worry. Okay, so both fittings cleaned up. Here's the stock small little O-rings, which you know, when I reinstall these, they do screw back in nicely. Everything looks fine. I thought to myself, well, if a little bit of O-ring is better, surely more O-ring has got to be much better yet. So stock O-ring, new O-ring, a little bit fatter. I did test it and it does fit inside the, it does actually screw inside. So I reached for, okay, part of me reached for the silicone grease thinking I'm going to lubricate this so it doesn't corrode again. But then the little devil on my other shoulder reached for the Ultra Gray. So I don't want to screw with this again. I'm going to coat this in some Ultra Gray, not to seal it, but to keep the oxygen and corrosion off it. I'm going to coat the O-ring in Ultra Gray, slip it back on here so that we get a nice layer of Ultra Gray, screw it back in so this doesn't oxidize and cause another issue. Let me go ahead and do that. I don't think we'll have to wait for anything to dry because the thicker O-ring itself and cleaning this up should be enough to seal it. So what I'm going to do is put the O-rings on, coat the O-rings in Ultra Gray, put them back on, we'll install them, we'll pressurize the system, we'll check for leaks, and if that's fine, we're probably going to just pressurize it up and leave it overnight to see if anything else leaks out. Except that leaves us with another problem. Our air compressor is dead, so I'm gonna do some more testing on the air compressor to see why that didn't start up. So let's do this first. We know we have a leak there. We'll seal the leak. We'll test that. If that's happy, then we'll go on and we'll troubleshoot the compressor system. Okay? Okay. Okay, so real quick, here's what we got. We got O-ring assembled with some fresh ultra gray all around, and especially where it's corroding, seal it. I'm gonna screw these in and seat them. Then we'll pressure up. They're both in there. They both look like they're sealed with gray RTB. I think I would like to pressurize this and see what's going on before we rely on RTV for sealing anything. That's just a safety measure for corrosion. Let's pump it up. Okay. Let's just do an initial test, and we won't be able to get to the full PSI probably, but we'll get some air in there and we'll see if we get leaks. Okay. We are back to 125. Close that. Disconnect this. There we go. Okay, now that should be latched at about 110. Okay. Just for good measure, we're going to soak all this down too. Okay, judges. What do we think? I do not see any bubbles. Nor do I see any bubbles on the tank. Back there. On the forward line. Or the rear line, which is, I know it's really hard to see. Sorry. It's just the way it is. It's, you know, you're holding a light and a camera and you're hungry, you're thirsty, you had a beer. It's just... Through the magic of Hollywood? Can you see it at all? That blue line? Blue line goes into the tank. I don't see any air leaking. The black line on the forward tank seems fine. The manifold seems, just take my word for it, it's fine, okay? It's fine. So, our leak currently is sealed. We have no more leaks at the tank. The system's not wanting to fill. Through testing, I've dumped all the bags to atmospheric, which is, you know, bump stops. So we've got the Amish ride right now, which is, I'm fine with that, to be honest, but it does spill a lot of coffee when you're trying to take a sip and, you know, every little crack on the road. So I think what we need to do now is start testing the compressor. I'll start at the fuse block up front and we'll see if we have power there. And if we do, I guess I'll take us to the connector on the power bus for the pump, because if we look at this down here, The actual pump gets power through this connector, the two big lines at the corner here. So, but that doesn't receive power until the PCM tells it to, or rather, don't quote me on that. I don't know if that comes from the air suspension module. I suppose it probably does. It probably directs the PCM to supply power here. So I think what we'll do is we'll check under the fuse, make sure we have power there. Under the fuse. Oh, for God's sake. Under the hood. Under the hood. We'll check that 40 amp fuse, make sure we have power there. If we do, I don't know if there's much point in checking back here. We'll probably end up just pulling that compressor out, and we'll take a look at the compressor and see if it's seized. And then we'll probably just end up installing this new unit, because it's actually an upgraded unit with an aluminum piston, whereas the old one, according to this manufacturer, is made of plastic. So either way, it's an upgrade. I do want to put the new compressor in and the new valve block, because mine's looking pretty rusty and corroded anyways. So we'll swap those out, and then we'll see if the compressor fires up. If the compressor fires up and we can get the airbags to inflate, then we can check for further leaks, because I'm pretty sure we're not done yet. I mean, this is just be silly if it was this simple, but you never know. Plus, I have 2 new airbags to install, and I don't want to return them. So let's hope we find some other leaks. But we're not going to just blindly throw the parts can and add it and replace the other airbags. We're going to actually see if there was a leak first. So only for the purposes of YouTube, not because normally I would just throw them out. They're 7 years old. 90% of them are failed. Mine are going to fail. There's a lifespan on them for sure. But I just, for my own peace of mind, I want to know. Obviously, this leak was as big as a nail in a tire. So it's definitely probably is what burnt out my compressor. So if you have air ride suspension on 4th, probably 5th gens as well, Rams, check that. Just take that liner out, spray everything down there with soapy water, and check. Because you know what, if you've ever gone out in the morning and your truck's not level and the compressor comes on, concern, because the compressor should not come on and refill the system unless there is a leak. So if you hear your compressor start looking for leaks immediately before you blow out your compressor, because I was lazy, I admit it. I let this thing go for too long. I used this in the winter, air brake antifreeze and conditioner. I gotta say, it did work. It allowed me to run for a month at a time. I'd add an ounce every time in the filter in the back. If you look behind, this is quite a segue. If you look behind the passenger taillight, there is a filter back there. If you pull the filter off the line and get a little funnel and pour an ounce down there, it'll hit the top of the compressor. That's the intake. So if you do have leaks and you want a temporary Band-Aid only, get yourself some of this, pour it down in there, you'll be fine for a month at a time. I did that, and it did work. But long-term problems, you keep accumulating more and more moisture in the system, it's freezing, your compressor runs all the time, and these compressors from the factory are not meant to do that. Their duty cycle is very minimal. It's just to top up if you need to be. It's not to continuously keep powering your system like somebody who is too cheap to fix their leaky tire and they run an air compressor every morning before they go to work. It's not designed for that. So hopefully this upgraded unit down here, way down here, will do a little better. But there it is. But honestly, fix the leaks. The leaks are the problem. The leaks introduce moisture. The leaks get the compressor to run. And once winter hits, that moisture turns to ice. And you'll freeze your valve block. I've done that. You'll freeze your compressor up, which I haven't had. No, I shouldn't say that. I did have that luxury because my 40 amp fuse popped and I replaced it with an easier to change, easier to find ATC style fuse. So I have had that problem. So Make sure the system stays sealed. That means looking for any leaks if you know you have them, and taking care of the leaks right away. And once you do, what I would suggest is take that pump apart, replace the desiccant in the dryer. I would suggest that gets replaced if you have any sign of leaks. If you don't, you're probably fine. But if you ever noticed your compressor come on, it's probably because it's pulling in air from outside, which is going to be moisture laden. So probably every couple of years, I would suggest changing that desiccant just for measures of your own protection. But other than that, once my system is resealed, I'm going to make sure they do a vacuum on it, remove any air, meaning oxygen. Any moisture comes with it, it'll boil off and come out. Then once the vacuum's been maintained for a couple of hours or so at least, then you can refill the system with nitrogen, which is pure N, right? There's no O for the HO to latch onto and create moisture. So science. So let's go check for voltage. That's what I'm trying to say. That's all I'm trying to say. Glad you guys stuck around for that long. Boy, that was probably pretty boring. I'll grab my voltmeter, meet you under the hood. Okay, so we're under the hood. This is the fuse panel under the hood beside the battery. The closest place for a ground is obviously to put your black lead on the battery itself. And for your own sanity, check your meter. Can you see that? 0. Right here is the incoming power. 12.2. Good. So, checking the lid of the fuse box, we see this fuse here. Fuse number 5, air suspension compressor, 40 amps. And it lives right here. Normally, this fuse is one of these green type, I don't know what you want to call them, rectangular, square fuses. I'm not sure what the technical term is at the moment. I've replaced it with a fuse holder and a 40 amp ATC type fuse just because they're easier to find on the road if you're stuck somewhere. When I was troubleshooting a lot of problems with the system, eventually I go back to the regular 40, but this is easier to find on the road, of course. And right now I've got no voltage on either end. I think the key has to be on for the compressor. The other fuse is fuse 20. Fuse 20, I'm sorry, not fuse 20. Fuse 50 is air suspension module, 20 amp fuse. And fuse 50 lives right here. So that one happens to be this 20 amp fuse here. I've got power on this side. I've got power on this side. So the module is getting power. That's good. That's one thing you want to check. Now I'm going to turn the key on. And now we should have power on my 40 amp fuse. What the hell? No, we don't. Okay, I actually had to start the engine, and now we've got 14 volts on one side, volts on the other. That means the compressor is getting power. And actually, if you come with me to the back here, the compressor actually started up. And now we've got the bags inflated, so why? Did our fixing the leak actually allow the compressor to fill those tanks? I mean, the compressor sounds like crap. You can hear it munching away and whistling. But I'm going to assume normal ride height here. Lowering. Oh no, look at. We are actually lowering. Normal ride height achieved. Compressor sounds terrible. I'm just trying to fill the system right now. It'd be that simple? Fix the leak and the compressor's happy? I mean, it's not happy. It sounds like crap. I definitely am going to replace it anyways, but... So my compressor actually kicked on and it's refilling the system. So I think from here on what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the system fill. Once it's filled, I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to leave the gauges connected. We're going to get a reading of the pressure. We're going to leave them connected. We're going to shut off the air compressor, turn off the lines, shut off the lines to the air compressor. We're going to pull the fuse for the compressor so it cannot start. And then what we're going to do is see if we lose pressure. If we lose pressure, we know we have a leak somewhere else. If one of the corners drops, we know we have a leak at one of the airbags. You got me? You following? In the meantime, I'm going to go around with a water bottle with the fluid, the soapy water, and I'm going to spray at all the connection points and see if I can find any leaks. If you look down here, right about there, that's the top of the one strut. Top of the other strut down here. Spray those with soapy water. And we'll spray whatever we can find at the back for connections. You're supposed to take the bellows off the back airbags and spray those too, so I'm going to be doing that. And we'll look for any kind of leaks. If we find some, well, we have a leak. If we don't, the pressure test will tell us if we lost air or not. So you will lose a little bit of air because it's going to get colder during the evening here, but it should stay fairly consistent. So we'll that's the plan. That's the plan. Right? We're all on board? Okay. All right, so everything is now shut off. I'm at about 125. I'm going to disconnect this fitting. And I'm going to go pull the fuse under the hood. There. There's no way for the air compressor to come on, and we're not touching any settings, so the pressure should stay at 125 if we have no air leaks. Yeah, I'm gonna go grab some dinner. We'll come back. We'll spray some soapy water around, look for some leaks, and we'll see if we can find anything obvious. All right. So the plan right now is to check for leaks, leave it overnight, check the air pressure in the morning and see what we're at. That should tell us if we have any leaks. I've sprayed in here, we're still at 125, no leaks apparent. I've sprayed the top of the airbag, no leaks apparent. To be honest, didn't take this wheel liner out to spray this one, so we're gonna pretend we did that one. At the front, I have sprayed the top of that strut, no leaks. I have sprayed the top of this strut, no leaks. So at this point, I'm gonna put the tire back on the back. I'm gonna roll it onto the driveway just so I can get my side-by-side back in the garage and lock it up for security purposes. We'll check it in the morning, see if we lost any air pressure. That'll tell us if we have a leak or not. If we do, we'll go digging further. If not, I think what we'll do is replace the air compressor because it's super noisy. And we'll see what that does. I'm going to leave the fuse pulled for the compressor so it cannot actuate. So if we have a leak, we're going to lose pressure and we're going to know it. It's not, because normally the compressor would kick on and try to maintain the pressure, but we're disconnected. So compressor cannot kick on. So if there's a leak, we'll know off the gauges. If not, we're going to go ahead and replace the compressor. I'm on the fence about replacing the airbags. The factory ones are probably better quality, but it's been 7 years. The problem is if I don't replace them and they blow in a week after I've done the purge and refill with nitrogen at the dealer, I'm out $300. So do I just replace the airbags with aftermarket ones and then get it purged and refilled with nitrogen? I'm leaning towards that option, but I don't know. Bleep bloop it below. Let me know what you guys figure. At the moment, that's my path going forward. Unless, you know, if you have some good comments, please put them below. I'll definitely consider it. But at the moment, that's what my plan is. So stressful, but not bad. Anyways, catch you guys on the next one.